So now, in regards to willpower, it's very important to understand the fundamentals of how willpower actually works and where it comes from. And this is important because if you do not understand the fundamental process of developing willpower and using willpower, you're going to have a lot of problems. Because when you need the willpower, you really won't know how to address what your problem is otherwise. And there's a lot of harmful opinions out, right? People will say things like, well, willpower is like a muscle. It grows the more you use it. And this is harmful because it's not true. And if you apply that line of thinking to willpower, it will work against you. Because willpower is finite. It's fuel. Whereas muscle is mechanical. Right? Muscle does not work unless it has fuel. So you will not work unless you have fuel, and that fuel is willpower. So, let's talk about where willpower comes from. Now, willpower comes from two things. Willpower comes from the strength of your desire, and it also comes from your belief in that desire. The belief that you can achieve and realize that desire. It can be yours. You need those two things. If you are lacking willpower, it would either be because your desire is not strong enough, or you just don't believe in that desire enough. So this becomes illustrated in people who are in very desperate situations. You've heard, motivational speakers, like Eric Thomas, who used to be homeless, where he talked about eating out of trash cans. And then he goes on to, grow as a person and become this extremely wealthy and inspirational and influential person. Because he was so desperate and he had enough. And his desire to be better, his desire to succeed was so strong that it gave him this vast amount of willpower. And he believed in that vision that he saw for the future. He believed that if he worked hard enough, he could make it happen. Right? Great guy to listen to. Now, you have people who are also in very desperate situations who we would view as lazy. Even though they're in this horrible and desperate situation, they just don't take action. They're in bed all day, they don't really do much. They just seem to just be very unambitious people. But the truth is, I guarantee you that if I was to talk to that person, we could both, by the end of that conversation, come to an agreement that the reason why they don't take more action is because they don't believe that things will get better. It's very important to understand that, because you may identify with that. You may identify with the fact that you are not doing what you are supposed to be doing. You are not doing what you feel is in your best interest to do. And you may think, well, I just lack the willpower. I just lack the motivation. What you lack is the belief in what you desire. So a good exercise to think about is maybe you want to get out a pen and paper. You want to get out a pen and a sheet of paper. And you want to write down your top 3 deepest desires. You may need a week to even think about this. Right? Don't put up something like $1 million, just some arbitrary number. Really think about the kind of life you want to live, the type of person you want to be, and how you want to be remembered. Really get that vision in your head and then write it down. These are the top 3 things. And in my life right now, I am so sick of not being and not having these top 3 things. And then write that down. And you know what? Each one of those 3 things, it may fill up an entire page, right? That one thing may be like a whole paragraph long or several paragraphs. Elaborate, right? Be very detailed with the desire, right? But the top 3, really take some time to think about it. Now, aside from that, think about, really challenge, and be honest with yourself. entirely. Do I honestly believe that I am capable of achieving what I want? I gotta really keep clearing my throat. All right, there we go. Do I really believe in myself? Do I really believe that this is possible for me? Right? It's very important to be honest with yourself, because now one of two things is going to happen here, or one of two things has to happen. Either you have to lower the standard of the desire, or you have to raise the belief. You're going to have to do one of the two, right? But either way, they got to meet. Because if the desire is here and the belief is here, that willpower is going to suffer, right? So we got to get them here. And that's on you to really decide. Which one do I want to bring down the desire? Do I want to raise the belief? And how do you raise the belief? Right? And of course, self-development and developing competence and confidence is a big part of that, right? In order to develop the belief, to have the courage to pursue your desire. And that's a whole separate conversation. But those are just some things to really analyze and take a look at for yourself. Right? The desire and the belief have to be on par. Okay. Now, there's a whole other side to willpower. And so now I will redress the point that willpower is fuel. It is finite. It runs out. It can get stretched too thin. Right? So think about the things that you have on your plate. Look at your plate and how much you have on your plate. Right? For some of you, you may be taking care of sick grandparents. You may be taking care of kids. You may work crazy hours at a full-time job. You may, be taking care of people and working full-time and going to school. You may have a completely jam-packed schedule. And so, if that is the case, understand that you are already using a lot of your willpower fuel. It's spread really thin. Now, if you have a new goal, there's a new thing that you want to achieve for yourself, that's fine. You can have a new goal. But just understand that with that new goal means that you are now diluting your willpower even more. And when you do that, your willpower becomes even more strained and more ineffective. And everything else suffers. So if you try to apply that thin willpower straight across the board, everything will suffer. You run the risk of failing at everything entirely. So there's some assessments to make. I need some help. How much help do I need? Where can I get that help? You got to set yourself up, right? So that you can redistribute how much is on your plate. If you're taking care of kids, you may need some help with that. If you're at work, you may need to cut back on your hours at work to put that energy into something else. You may need to, cut down on some classes at school, right? Finish all the classes this semester, but next semester, maybe you take it 1 or 2 classes less, right? I'll leave that up to your judgment to pursue this other thing, right? But you got to analyze, what are the most important things for me? If I'm going to school, what's driving me to take these courses? What is driving me to pass these classes and get this degree? To do what? I'm working this job all these hours. For what? Right? And look at your entire life. Because school, work, and taking care of family, those can be top 3 right there. Right? For sure. But now let's look at other things. Like, what other things are we putting willpower into? Maybe we're holding on to a toxic relationship that we're in. And let me tell you, it takes a lot of willpower to try to stay in or maintain a toxic relationship. And I don't just mean an intimate relationship. I mean, it can be a relationship with a toxic family member, a toxic friend, right, or something like that. Any toxic relationship will kill your willpower, right? Things that don't kill your willpower are things that are very easy to do, things that are habits, like, I don't know, sleep in, watch television, nonsense television shows, right? Or just do really easy things that really require no commitment and no energy. Those things don't sap your willpower. They just sap your time. And that's an entirely different conversation where we can talk about time management. But right now, we're talking about willpower. So to simplify, on this side, we got to make sure that the desire is strong enough, that desire is great enough, and that the belief in that desire is great enough. And then on this side, we got to see how far thin are we spreading that willpower. And get a notebook and journal. Write down your thoughts. Make the lists. Write down your top 3. Write down why you believe in the top 3, that you believe that you can achieve it, right? Give yourself some evidence. Well, I know I can achieve this thing because I've done that. If your goal is to lose 30 pounds, if you lost 15 pounds, the fact that you lost the 15 pounds is proof that you can lose another 15 pounds. Find confidence in that, right? So give yourself evidence. Use your past experiences as evidence, right? Of course, you want to be careful when you're using your past failures as evidence for why you'll fail in the future. I don't advise that because I don't see how it helps you. If anything, your past failures can be used as evidence to show, hey, I can learn from this failure and do better. So this makes me more likely to succeed this time around. So it all depends on your framing. And I can't tell you how to think, but I can give you some insight and perhaps get you thinking about some things in your head and write them down, and maybe some of this message, hopefully all of it, will resonate with you and you'll take action. You'll get that journal and you'll write things down. You'll make the lists. You'll be honest with yourself. You'll have that honest internal self-dialogue.